that right?
They get out there, those clouds, and they go, the cloud always around. They get it, leave enough snow there for the sun to come out and keep it done. Oh, yeah. So we need to throw that out of our map.
Katie was 6 years old when it happened. School was canceled because of the snowstorm, and she'd been moping around all day, not knowing what to do with herself. Whining, complaining, she was driving me nuts. It was snowing like crazy, but I figured I could keep an eye on her in the backyard. Around 2, I finally told her, "That's it, you're going out." "Mama, I don't feel good," she said. "Oh, don't start now, or you'll be sorry. Now get, or I'll spank you, hiney." Ellen was finally down for her nap. Timmy wouldn't be home for another 3 hours. I was thinking, God, these might be the only few minutes of peace I'd have all day. I pulled the kebab stuff out of the refrigerator. And while I skewered the beef and onions and peppers over the sink, I watched out the window. Kitty plunked herself right down into a snowdrift. She sat there, her back to me, her arms crossed defiantly. And I thought, ooh, you are so bad sometimes. Soon she was banging on the door to be let in. I knew her pants would be soaked. "What did I tell you?" I pulled her inside and gave her a whack on the bum. "There, now you've got something to cry about." "Mama, I don't feel good." Her face was flushed and puffy. I put my hand to her forehead. The heat of her skin shocked me. "Get up to bed, honey. I'll be right there." I called the doctor and looked out the front window. Snow was already starting to drift. On the front steps, it was several inches deep, and I knew I should get out and shovel before it got worse. The doctor came on the line. "Even if I did make house calls, I couldn't come. Look outside." "I am looking. I got a sick kid. For the goddamn money you make, you could rent a snowplow to get here." "Give her juice, give her aspirin, call back in the morning. It's probably just a virus." I banged the phone down and looked out to see Timmy pull in. His car plowed and skidded to a halt against the back bumper of a car across the street. Timmy didn't even try to move it to park it better. He stepped into the road and slammed the door. He's so small, 5'1", and skinny, that everything's just too big on him. He looks like a little kid who dressed up to pretend he was an adult. I knew what it meant, him being home this early. We'd heard the rumors of layoffs. 2 goddamn weeks. 2 goddamn weeks, I thought. They couldn't wait 2 goddamn weeks till Christmas. I couldn't deal with this. I poured a glass of orange juice and ran up the stairs to Katie. She was laying on top of her bedspread, a big, round, wet spot surrounding her black rubber boots. Jesus. Just because you're sick don't mean you can get away with murder. I set the glass down and began to unbuckle the boots. The rubber felt cold and spongy, like my mother's skin at her wake. I yanked one boot off, her leg loose, fell from my hands and I jiggled it. Hey, Katie, hey, come on now. Don't do this. Stop playing. All of a sudden, I get this tight feeling in my chest, like the feeling you get when you're washing dishes and your hand's inside a glass and the glass cracks and there's no way you can escape your own blame. I took her frozen hands and shook them. Then I reached up and shook her by the shoulders. I was still shaking her and screaming, Katie, Katie, Katie! When Timmy came into the room and touched me, his fingers on my neck like ice. That was 5 years ago. Today, standing on the porch, looking through my pocketbook for the key, I heard Shirley across the street say to a group of neighborhood kids hanging on her porch, I wouldn't go over there. Her daughter's got a disease. You got something to say, spit it out. She glanced at me, dragged on her cigarette, exhaled. It ain't a disease, it's an event. The doctors called it a neurological event. They don't know what it is. For all they know, it could be something like AIDS. Stop saying that. It ain't a disease. My jaw tightened. I thought of those kids over there. Before Katie gets sick, my porch was the one they gathered on. After Katie's illness, no one stopped by. Yeah, Shirley called back across the street. She lets all these strangers into her house. She begs them to come in and do her work for her for nothing. She don't even warn them. I hurried down our cement steps across the street without taking my eyes off Shirley. From the foot of her stairs, I pointed at her. It ain't a disease, and I wouldn't have to beg from strangers if friends helped. She glared down at me. Friends? You have friends anymore. I felt the blood leave my face like my throat had been slit. The sun seemed hot all of a sudden, in a draining sort of way. They are thick and hard to walk through. When I turned to leave, I saw Timmy watching from behind the storm door of our row house. Almost noon, and he still had his pajamas on. I edged sideways, barely able to squeeze between the two cars. My knees started acting up. I thought it might give out on me and I'd fall on my face in the street. Not now, God, please. I've had enough. Don't let me embarrass myself anymore. Timmy held the door open. Pat, why do you bother? Shirley, let it go. She'll get over it. You know her. He started to put his arm around my shoulders. I know he was trying to help. But a jolt of meanness went through me, and I shrugged from his touch. Why aren't you dressed? He tried to joke. It's my day off. Every day is your day off. This is my unemployment day. So, you don't have to be there till 1. If you didn't spend so goddamn much time sitting on your ass, maybe you'd have something. I knew that wasn't fair. He had been looking. He turned to go up the stairs to change. I wanted to apologize, but I couldn't bring myself to say, I'm sorry. I looked back across the street at Shirley. She made a motion with her hand for me to come over, kind of an apologizing motion. Screw you, I called, and I slammed the door and thought, why do I say these things? Timmy pulled open the glass door of the unemployment center. The light glaring down from the overhead tubes was harsh and bright. It was like being slapped in the forehead so hard his eyeballs popped forward. He felt watched, humiliated. Here he was begging, on the dole. He remembered his father saying one time, "Real men can always find work." "Yeah, well, maybe I ain't a real man." "You're right. You're just a little boy. Can't even play football. You embarrassed the shit out of me." Timmy settled into line behind 20 or so people. The newspapers and TVs had been full lately of sob stories about all the unemployed yuppies who'd lost their big-paying jobs. Why the hell weren't the reporters here, at this office? They sure as hell hadn't told stories about these people here. None of us made 60 grand in a year. Did that mean our lives didn't matter? Someone coughed. Timmy looked around. He was frightened. Had he been talking out loud again? Betty Lane, a lanky black woman who'd been released from her nurse's aide job after 15 years, gave him a small, sad smile. "We are all here. We are all here." Michael Worster, a compact, round-faced man, half-winked his eyes and nodded. "Hold on, man. Hold on yourself. Don't let them get to you." Michael'd been a clerk downtown before the latest city cutbacks. Now he'd taken to wearing loose sweatshirts, dungarees, sandals, and a chin beard. Some said he was writing poetry, for God's sakes. Then he looked along the line. There weren't too many guys from the plant still coming. A lot had moved away. Those who were left seemed too embarrassed to look at you. "Yeah, I'm the old-timer now," Timmy thought, "collecting, standing in line." He was into his extended benefits, and when they ran out, what would happen then? Thinking about it, he remembered what his friend Jim said a couple Sundays ago, down at Harry's Tavern, when they went to watch the Steelers game. The talk at halftime got away from football. Everyone started complaining about the news story, saying how great Pittsburgh was, #1 city, best place to live. Best for who? Timmy wanted to know. How can they figure #1 when so many guys are out of work? "But we're not real," Jim told those circled at the bar. "The thing is, people don't see us anymore. Guys like us, we're fine if we're just statues they can put up and moon over. But the real us, we're an embarrassment. We give Pittsburgh a bad name because we expect to get paid for work. We don't want to have to kiss anyone's ass for a job. So they write us off, pretend we don't exist. If they pretend hard enough, they can convince these new corporations they don't have to see us either. How do you think they get these businesses to come in downtown? They promise to get rid of us, to break the unions." Timmy remembered this as he looked around at the people standing quietly in line. They slouched or hunched over, heads down, lined up like bad children waiting to be punished. For what? Being alive? Inside him, the tension wound tighter. His legs grew tired. He shuffled forward an inch or two. He looked at the ID in his hand, his picture like the photo of a convict, the same haunted, exhausted look to the eyes. Timmy swabbed sweat on his forehead with a handkerchief. He checked his watch. A baby started crying. At the front of the line, a young, long-haired woman rocked side to side in an effort to comfort her child. No one was behind the counter. They were all at the rear of the office, at the desk of their supervisor. A tall man with small, weasel-like eyes and thick, blonde hair that fell across his forehead. 3 of them laughing and sharing a chocolate birthday cake. The people in line began to get restless. "Hey, the break's too long. You all partying while we need money. I need my check. I have a job interview. My varicose veins are flaring." An elderly woman with a cane looked around at the floor for a clean spot to sit. The baby was wailing now, arching backwards in its mother's arm. The mother swayed and bounced the baby, switched the child from hip to hip, cooed. I know, you've been patient, honey, I know. She told the line, "He's hungry." It was obvious she was still breastfeeding. I don't want to lose my spot. If they ever get back here, someone called. Timmy felt a clutch in his chest. He called out, "Hey, hey, hey, we got babies here. We got old people. You know, we busted our asses too. What do we have to do to get our checks?" There were murmurs, agreements, and one loud clap. Timmy shouted, "We don't need this crap from you." At the rear of the office, two women turned. The supervisor, his hands to the desk, rose. All three focused their eyes on Timmy. Everyone in line looked away, shuffled to one side or the other as someone whimpered. Timmy found himself standing alone. When he made it to the front, he tried to apologize. It's just, you know, it's like nobody's hiring. And when you're used to working, sometimes, I put in 40 hours a week here, the woman said, and I am sick of hearing you people whine as if you're the only ones who ever lost a job. She turned and called to the supervisor, Mr. Kingchester. She set Timmy's file aside and ordered him, "Move over. Next." "For what?" he asked. "Move over. Next." Mr. Kingchester moved slowly to the front to retrieve Timmy's file. Returning to his desk, he examined his fingernails, took out a pair of clippers, and worked on trimming them. The people in line moved forward, got their checks, moved out. Mr. Kingchester stood and stretched, sauntered to the coffee machine, chatted with another man for several minutes. When he returned, he sipped from a heavy white mug, looked at Timmy's file. He jotted some notes down on a piece of paper, then made a phone call. Finally, he strolled casually forward, his hands in the pockets of his pants, so that his arms looked like wings at his sides. "No check today." "What are you talking about?" "We have to investigate a few things." "What things?" "I'm coming here for possible fraud." Harry's bar was almost empty. Two heavy-bellied men wearing denim jackets sat in the corner booth. On a stool at the bar sat a black guy. He was an older man with a mustache and gray curls so tight to his scalp they seemed to be clinging there. He was the first black guy Timmy had ever seen in Harry's. Timmy took a stool 2 seats down from the man. All his life, people had been making fun, telling mean jokes about black people, accusing them of stealing white jobs. Timmy felt embarrassed about that, but he never said anything. Since he'd been out of work, he'd been feeling a whole lot less grudging towards a lot of people. People on welfare, guys living on the streets, blacks. Some claimed affirmative action was responsible for lost jobs, but that wasn't true. People were just looking for someone to blame. The man tipped his head in greeting, and Timmy mumbled, "Hey, can I get a draft?" Timmy asked Harry. He pulled a few crumpled bills and assorted coins from his dungaree pocket. Harry angled a mug under an Iron City tap. While the glass filled, he said, his voice pitched to carry to the men in the corner, "Anyone, anybody who pays can get a drink here." Harry passed the beer to Timmy. My daddy grew up here, the man said to Harry, back when you had to sweep your porch 3 times a day to get the grit off. I remember that, Harry said. You couldn't breathe, but everyone had work back then, before the goddamn environmentalists destroyed the steel industry. Harry folded and unfolded his arms, straightened the gray cloth draped over his apron string. Hell, I don't think they were the problem, said the man. He leaned back in his stool, shaking his head. When we was growing up, my daddy told us this country will always need steel, and this city will always need men strong enough to make it. As long as there's a God and a union, you're all set. The man looked at Timmy. He always said, put your trust in God and your faith in the union, you old fool. Timmy watched Harry stiffen, gripping the counter behind him. There was a quick shuffling from the corner. What was that? A man with a meaty face hurried over and leaned one hand on the bar beside the black man. You bad-mouthing unions? Sit your ass down, Harry said. The man eased back but didn't leave. You don't think they sold us out too? Pal. Harry took the cloth from the belt of his apron and set it on the counter. All these people here, they used to work at that plant. He motioned with his hand towards the door. That's right. Used to. Used to. Are your union reps out of work? There was an edgy silence. I get your point. I don't. The other man leaned forward. The old man shook his head, held his hands open. You know what your problem is? The younger man made a fist, and Harry shot his right hand straight out. I won't have trouble in my bar. Well, tell him. He's the one running down unions and white people. He didn't say nothing about white people, Timmy said. What did you just say? The man demanded. The black man shook his head and laughed. He must be crazy, Timmy thought. These guys would kill him in here. The black man spoke to Harry. As I was saying, the problem is when you put all your trust in the wrong people. Because the people in control looked like you thought you didn't have to keep an eye on them. You forgot what power is all about. All these layoffs? You know how much money your union reps are making? Twice what they did 10 years ago. You don't remember, just a youngin', but I was working out to Homestead when that first big layoff hit. I was 41 years old with 19 years in on the job and 9 months. 3 months to go for retirement. They shut down and the union told me, sell your time. Only thing you can do, they said, sell your time. We'll get you $2,700 for it. 20 years ago, that was good money. I had 4 kids then. I couldn't, like some of them single kids, take a fast food job. I had to feed my babies. The union said, sell your time, go ahead, the mill's never gonna reopen. They were union men, so I believed them. I took the money. And when the mill started gearing up again, calling people back, it was like I'd never been there. 3 months away from retirement. Instead, you know what I got now? A couple months a year, I get a check for $201 from DPA. I get $10 a month food stamps. I mow lawns when I can borrow a mower. I sell blood down at the plasma center with all them dopers. I used to go to Biodecision, let them pump me full of drugs. They test pharmaceuticals, but now I can't. I can't pass their physicals. My wife's gone. My kids are gone. Only time I get to see my grandbabies is when the food pantry has cookies, so at least I have something to bring them. He sipped from his beer, brushed the foam off his mustache with his fingers. Yes, sir. You got all kinds of opportunity for people who already got opportunities. He nodded to himself, put his hands around his glass. His fingers were long and dry and looked to be dusted with chalk powder. But I was a union man through and through. What I am now, I owe it all to the union and my own stupidity for trusting anyone in power. Patterning. I need to run Katie through this patterning program 3 times a day, 7 days a week. It's a process where someone takes each arm and each leg, and I hold her head, and we move her through the motions of a baby learning how to crawl. The theory is it's supposed to train the part of her brain that's not damaged to take over the work of the brain that is damaged. I need so many volunteers I can't count. In the years Katie's been out of the hospital, I've had my share of weirdos, but my Monday group takes the cake. They come from a small evangelical church run out of this guy John's house, and they scare me the way they pray like they're cashing in. One time, Ellen interrupted just as we were about to start. Guess what happened to me at school today? John gazed at Ellen, who stood at the top of the stairs, and told her, Come down and pray with us. God wants you down here right now. Don't you love your sister? Ellen scuffed a cloud of dust off the stair with her shiny black shoes. You don't have to if you don't want to, I told her. You're fighting us, John told her. You need to submit to God's plan. Linda, a middle-aged woman with hair so bluntly cut it looks like it was done with a steak knife, rolled her eyes. She wore a wooden cross the size of a model airplane around her neck, and she raised this towards me. Pat now. You got to get your act together. The Lord's not going to let your child come back into a messed up home. John shook his finger. God wants us to heal this child, so the world will have to listen to our witness. But your lack of faith is preventing us. I didn't know. What if they were right? What if it was my fault Katie wasn't getting better? Just like it'd been my fault she got sick in the first place. I looked at the group holding hands in a circle around the exercise table where Katie lay, and I broke in and joined them. Get down here! I yelled back at Ellen. She blew air out her mouth. Started tapping her foot. All around me, the volunteers began speaking in tongues and religious phrases. Lord this and Lord that, glory and beseech and mercy and forgive, praise and praise. And I looked at Katie. Her long body stretched on the vinyl top work table. Though her muscle tone was good from all the exercises we put her through, her face was slack. Her teeth angled out in all directions. She made sucking motions and stared up at the ceiling. Her pupils were all surface. They were a shallow, solid brown that reflected light. Sometimes I just wanted to poke her eyes to get her attention. I said to her, come on, Katie, cut the crap. It's been long enough. What more do you want from me? Jesus, I'm sorry. John looked at me. Lord, please forgive and heal these sinners. I closed my eyes. I wanted Katie to walk again, and I didn't care if it was God or magic, or if I had to cut my arm off to do it. There were times at the end of the day when I sat down to rest that I couldn't remember the first thing about how my life used to be. Even my home, the den, the kitchen, The bedroom seemed alien. Ellen and Timmy, they were like ghosts. I was beginning to hate everything about my life. I was sick of having to beg for help all the time, Xeroxing flyers, Katie's gonna win, and beneath that, the explanation of her brain damage. I was sick of tacking them to telephone poles, taping them in store windows, begging priests that they should let me put them in the back of their churches. I was sick of sitting home hoping somebody, anybody, would call to volunteer. I was sick of holding spoons to Katie's mouth, having to feed her, wipe her, sit her up, set her down, dress and undress this 11-year-old girl who was more helpless than any baby. I was sick of changing diapers, cleaning her adult mess. I'd been losing faith that she was going to go better, and I hated myself for that. You know, in church all the time, they keep telling us you have to have faith and everything will work out. You just have faith. And I could never figure out what I was supposed to have faith in. What if God didn't want Katie to get better? What if Katie was happier being the way she was? Nobody wants to think about these things, but once they get in your head, you can't stop it. I don't know what to hope for anymore. Katie, I said, now please, Katie, for Mama, do something. She opened her mouth, spit drooled out the side. She struggled to lift her right arm towards her face so she could suck on the cramped fingers of the hand. No, I said. I broke free of the circle and pulled her hand away, slapped it lightly. How many times have I told you not to do that? Behind me, the circle whisked closer. Someone brushed against me. That gave me the creeps. John said, "Let this child walk now, Lord, for your glory." Please, Katie, please. I stroked her thick, rough hair. You little jerk. Don't be defiant. Please, do something. Say something. Say Mama. Just say Mama. Mama, don't you want to hear what happened to me? I'd forgotten Ellen was there. No, just, get down here and help us right now. Wash your hands and come down. You never helped me, she said. She stormed off and slammed the door. It made my heart feel like someone had squeezed it. Right then, Katie had a startled reaction, a mini seizure, her third of the week. I felt the air evaporate from my lungs. Her body jerked, grew rigid, her arms and legs, pulled by their tightening muscles, rose and crossed before her. For the few seconds the seizure lasted, she looked pained and confused. Then that passed, and her muscles relaxed, and her limbs lowered, and she let out a soft animal purr that sounded like a laugh. Her eyes were distant and glossy. They didn't even look like eyes, but windows, opening to another world. Harry's place was mobbed. It was the first Monday night the Steelers had been on in years, and Timmy decided to go, even though Pat was so pissed she threw a pan at him as he walked out the door. Inside the bar, it was like a party, crammed and noisy. What gives? Timmy asked, squeezing onto a stool near the front. Harry flicked his cloth over the bar. Your buddy must have hit the lottery. When someone's buying, don't take 2 minutes to word get out. Timmy looked down the length of the bar, spotted Jerry, making his way up towards him. Jerry's face was florid, smiling. He received handshakes, pats on his arm as he headed to the front. Jerry gripped Timmy around the shoulders and pulled him nearly off the stool. "Steelers! Steelers!" he chanted, then laughed to the room. "On me!" Jerry pulled a wad of 20s from his pocket and handed them to Harry. Timmy accepted a shot in the beer. Jerry punched him in the arm. The man beside Timmy said, "They got no business ticketing a man's car." Timmy and Jerry looked over. The man had a body like a cement mixer gone soft. His face was dark and lumpy, scarred around the eyes. His nose had been broken at least twice. "Everyone's in your business, but if someone's giving you the business, that's none of your business." Jerry gave Timmy an amused look, then leaned over. "Hey, buddy, chill. Have another drink. Harry, cheer this son of a bitch up. I'm gonna go play some records." Timmy looked around, but Jim wasn't there. He didn't want to feel ungrateful towards Jerry, but beyond the Steelers and the arm punching, they had nothing between them. The man beside him knocked his elbow into Timmy's arm. "Whatever happened to big business?" "I don't know," Timmy said and lifted his beer. The man elbowed Timmy's arm again. "A few years back, everyone's complaining big business this, big business that. Now that so many things are fucked up, how come nobody wants to blame big business? Somebody's got to be at fault." Harry stared at the man. "Pal, don't you watch the news? Things are friggin' great." "What things?" "What things?" Harry straightened up, adjusted the washcloth. "The news says every friggin' thing is going smooth as baby shit. Don't you never listen to our beloved mayor?" Laughter cracked along the bar like falling dominoes. Harry walked off to refill more mugs. The guy beside Timmy waved his hand and said, "That little fucking wop?" "He died," Timmy said. "The wop mayor?" "Yeah, a while ago. We got a new mayor, an old Jewish lady. She's about 70 or something." "A Jew? First we had to let the coloreds in the mill. Then we had to let women on the cops. Now you're telling me we got a Jew mayor? Come on, pipe down," someone called from down the bar. "You come on. They're giving jobs to fucking homos and Japs. Everybody but us white guys. You're telling me to pipe down?" The guy put his hands to the bar. "How come everybody gets a break but us, huh?" "Hey, that's enough of that," Harry said. "Enough of what?" The man pushed back. Timmy glanced around, but no one looked over. The people in the place seemed the same as usual. Dungarees, work shirts, guys holding bottles at their side like clubs, but no one looked familiar. He turned back to the bar, drank from his mug, listened to the commercials on TV, the tapping, scraping sound of bottles and glasses on wood. He stared at his own image in the mirror behind the bar. The man prodded his back. "Come on, tell me. I asked you a question." "The boss," Jerry yelled. "Born in the USA" exploded through the bar. Drums and power chords. Jerry jumped up, strummed an imaginary guitar, punched his fist in the air. "That's what I'm talking about!" The guy beside Timmy screamed. "What is your problem, buddy?" Jerry asked. The man's body went tight. "My problem?" A minor trembling passed through him like a sparking current. Hands gripped Timmy's shoulders from behind and gave them a squeeze. "Hey, you munchkin," someone said, and Timmy turned to see Jim's face. Springsteen's gravelly voice cut through the bar, singing about having nowhere to run to, nowhere to go. Timmy just saw it out the side of his eyes, but it came so quickly he had no time to stop it. In one motion, the man swiped a beer bottle from the bar and smashed it into Jim's face. The bottle exploded on impact. Jerry and several others jumped on the man, knocking him to the floor. Jim staggered back. A jagged river of blood as wide as a finger flowed from a gash above Jim's eye. His knees bent. His feet did a desperate zigzag dance as he struggled to remain standing. Then his legs collapsed on him. Jerry and three guys kicked and punched the other man, pushed him towards the door. The man kept trying to rise, getting to his hands and knees, but workers pounded his ribs until he fell again. They shoved him out onto the sidewalk. Jerry turned, brushing his hands. Harry had already called 911. They propped Jim into a sitting position on the bar, against the bar, and pressed a white cloth against his wound. One of the guys came over who had some training in first aid. Timmy stepped back to let that man do what he could to stop the flow of blood. Then the ambulance people were there, insisting, above Jim's protest, that he had to go in for stitches. The wound was bleeding too heavily for him to drive. The medics moved Jim to the door, and when he was gone, the place was silent. The only sound, the announcer on TV excited about someone in pads running down an AstroTurf field. Timmy leaned his elbows on the worn counter. The fluorescent bar lights gleamed on the bottles, lined in 3 staggered rows on the shelves before him. He felt trapped. Jerry patted Timmy's shoulder. "Hey, buddy, cheer up. He'll be okay. He'll be okay." Timmy shook his head. "I went through this whole day, and I didn't do nothing. Nothing that mattered to anyone." "I hear you," Jerry nodded. A news alert came on, an update on the lead story about the hard hat bandit. He'd hit another bank that morning. Jerry pulled his stool tight to the bar and listened intently. Mayor Stephanie Mendelssohn's long, waxy face came on the screen. She spoke in a shrill voice. "This is a city of decent, honest working people. That Penny Andy deadbeat must be from New York." Her mouth closed like a puppet's. Jerry was angry. What the hell does she know? She never sweated a day in her life. On the jukebox, Grace Slick sang in a tremulous voice, "Look what's happening out in the street. Got a revolution, got to revolution." But the song fell flat. The festive atmosphere was gone. Half the guys had left. The other half slumped in their chairs. Timmy tipped the shot glass to his mouth and felt the burn along the inside of his throat. "You know, the problem with these guys," Jerry motioned around the bar, "is someone did all their thinking for them, all their lives. Their daddies, the union, the foreman, the party, the church, the coaches, their wives. Now there's no one to take care of them. They're being asked to use their brains, and they're out of practice." Timmy ran his fingers through a circle of moisture on the bar. "I used to believe there'd be jobs for guys who wanted to work. The unions would look out for your ass, the city kid, the church. I thought my family..." Timmy's voice choked and he was stunned. Quickly, he scooped up a cocktail napkin and pretended to sneeze so he could wipe his eyes. "I got nothing to believe in anymore. Nothing. What's ever gonna get better?" Jerry stroked his beard with one hand and patted Timmy's shoulder with the other. "You got to make you better, not wait for it to happen." Cutting his eyes along the length of the bar to be sure no one was listening, Jerry leaned close. "You want to do something that will make you feel like a man again?" "I'm not talking about getting laid," Timmy said. "Me neither. I'm talking about something wilder than anything even I ever thought of before. Something to shake this whole damn city up. Make them really pay attention to what's happening." Timmy looked at him closely. Jerry smiled. "Something to blow the mayor's mind." I was was driving down to the dollar store, picking up some stocking stuffers for Ellen and Katie. There'd been a light dusting of snow during the night. It had melted about noon, then froze as the sky thickened with a low gray ceiling of clouds. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. When I went out, it was late afternoon. The sun was like this huge orange ball that had broken apart and was spilling all over the horizon. It caught the ice on the road, and the glare was so bright I could barely see. I was afraid of getting in an accident. Traffic was stop and go, and I rode on the bumper of the car in front of me. As I took a right out of the back street of row houses, headed past another closed-up plant, drove under the railroad trestle, came to the access road, a fluttery feeling started in my chest. I looked past the car in front of me, down the road. The orange glare of the ice turned the street and its shoulder into a surface of flames. And there, standing in the flames 50 feet ahead, I saw her. I saw Katie. Katie. She was on the side of the road, holding something in her hands, cupping it so that her fingers glowed. It was brighter than any fire. And I shook my hand, trying to clear it. But she was still there. She was smiling. Her mouth was moving. She was trying to tell me something. But I couldn't hear her. I couldn't understand what I said. What is it? She kept trying to tell me, but I couldn't make it out. Her eyes took on the sparkle. I could see her so clearly standing there, her hands glowing, her eyes shining like two miniature suns brought down to earth. I couldn't see anything else but her. But I couldn't understand what she needed. I had to pull over. I was crying so hard. And when I stopped, she was gone.